functions, and sometimes the introductions go on a lot longer than the remarks you may be giving. My favorite introduction ever given by a person in public life was given many years ago. It was a wonderfully colorful member of the United States Senate from the state of New York by the name of Chauncey Depew. He was thought of himself as a rather flamboyant, colorful figure. He was asked at a very distinguished dinner one evening, a black-tie dinner at the Waldorf Astoria, to introduce William Howard Taft, who was the only American in our history who ever held the office of both President of the United States as well as Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. A unique American, very distinguished American. He was also physically rather large. He was about 6'8" and weighed about 400 pounds, even in his later years. Anyway, Chauncey Depew at this very, very formal dinner, recognizing Taft, concluded his introduction of Taft by saying, "It now gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you a man who is both pregnant with integrity and pregnant with courage." Well, of course, the crowd roared its approval and gave William Howard Taft appropriately a standing ovation. Taft slowly made his way up to that podium and waited for the noise to subside and the crowd to be reseated. And he turned to the audience and he said, "If it is a girl, I shall call her integrity. And if it is a boy, I shall call him courage. But if, as I suspect, is nothing more than gas, I shall call it Chauncey Depew." So the next time you're introduced at a county function here, you can think of old Chauncey Depew and a wonderful, colorful introduction of a person in public life. Well, it's good to be with all of you. Certainly Kim Painter, I thank you very, very much as well. And Michael King, your incoming president as well, to invite us all to be with you here. And I know that Larry Nake and Eric Coleman as well at the national level for the National Association of Counties are here as well. Connecticut, I must say, just briefly, we used to have county government. I'm one of the few states left in the country that doesn't have county government any longer. We devolved 50 years ago from 8 counties in my small state to 169 municipalities. So I can't begin to tell you what a pleasure it is to only have to deal with 99 counties in Ireland. In my state of Connecticut, as most of you know, of course, you could hide in a corner of the state geographically. It's about 110 miles by 60 miles. And to have 169 municipal governments in that kind of space, cheek to jowl, is really a challenge, as I say at the beginning. But I've enjoyed over the years, my 26 years in the Senate, and 6 years before that in the House of Representatives, of dealing with my mayors and first select people, my burgesses and so forth, going back to some of the antiquated ideas of local government, but very, very important for all of us. So I'm honored to be here. I should point out as well this morning, my sister Martha is here. The family's been out campaigning. Martha's from Rhode Island, and there's also a large state here. We are from New England. I thank her for coming out and campaigning with her brother as well. And this morning, let me just share some thoughts with you about all of this. And my respect, and I say this at home to my own constituencies, and I meet with my council of governments. What we meet with in Connecticut here is a way of meeting with local officials. I do at least once a year, usually in January or February, the beginning before the appropriation process begins, so we're going over what the agenda items are. And I truly mean this. I always tease a little bit. Those of us who get elected to state office or to national office get to leave town. You don't. I respect for those of you who make decisions and then have to go to the grocery store and the hardware store, what your families have to put up with after you make decisions at the county or local level. Those of you who can survive local politics, believe me, you could survive anything, even a presidential race here. So my admiration for those serving at that level is really unlimited. And I again appreciate the work that you do every day. And for all of us here, whether we serve at the national level, the state level, or the local level, the people who woke up this morning in Connecticut or Iowa and got into their cars and went off to work or sent their kids to school didn't begin the process by wondering who was responsible for their lives here. What's happening to their schools, what's happening to the infrastructure of our country, what's happening to our nation overseas. All they want to know is, can we get this right? This restoring responsibility in between each other here is the partnership, the brand, in a sense, we talk about as you gather here today, is so very, very important. More than anything else, that responsibility. People don't draw these distinctions. They don't even do it politically. I know we all like to think that, but most people don't get up and wonder in the morning whether or not they're a Democrat, or Republican, an independent. All they know is things don't seem to be working as well as they should for them, and they want to get it right. And they want all of us to do a better job in serving their interests. We all represent the very same people. We're the representative, whether we're the president, a United States senator, a governor, or a county supervisor, an auditor, a tax collector, whatever it is, we all represent those very same people who are seeking a better life and want to make sure their country is going to be secure and safe, and their children will have the opportunities and dreams fulfilled that every preceding generation has provided for all of us. And so in a sense, these issues we talk about here really are ones we need to have that shared partnership with if we're going to succeed in this at all, to make sure the job is going to get done for our country. We're going to be judged as a generation, not just the leaders that we choose to represent us. We talk about the greatest generation, the periods in our history. And while leaders at those times are important, it was also the contributions of every single citizen that made it possible for each generation to provide a better quality of life for each and every one of us. My mother collected antiques for a long time. And I remember hanging in our house in Connecticut for many years. It was an old sampler that she bought at an antique store in Connecticut years and years ago. And it was talking about New England, which wasn't much of a farm area, obviously, not anything like this state, obviously. But the sampler said, leave the land in better shape than when you found it. It was talking about a time when we had stony farms and trying to raise crops on very difficult soil. But the idea was that each generation tried to provide a different and improved quality of life for their children and grandchildren. You cleared another field. You built a new building so that each generation could prosper to a greater extent than the previous one. Well, we're not much of an agricultural sector anymore in New England. But the concept and the idea is something that applies to all of us, that we bear that shared responsibility to try and leave this land in better shape than when we inherited the responsibility for it. So again, serving at the local, state, or national level is that shared responsibility. And let me share some thoughts with you as someone who's dealt with these issues over the years and believes very, very strongly that we have to get this right now. We're at a very, very important moment in our nation's history. There are a lot of our fellow citizens who don't believe the future is as bright as it ought to be for our country. And they're counting on all of us at every level here to work together, to have that shared partnership to get this right for our country. And so it's an honor to be before you this morning. I'm particularly grateful to Pat and other county supervisors who are here, who are being supportive of my effort. I particularly want to thank, of course, Kevin Middlesmart, who's been so helpful, along with Phil Doherty, along with Pat Harney, of course, who introduced me this morning. And it's a pleasure to be with so many officials across the state who care so much about these issues. Let me also thank Linda Langston for her friendship and leadership as well. Linda's been a terrific help and gave me this pin that I'm wearing this morning last summer here talking about this, to rebuilding the partnership between all of us. It's not a request as I see it, but rather it's an order for the people that we seek to represent jointly. And rebuilding that partnership between federal, state, and local governments is why we're here today. Indeed, with so much attention focused on presidential elections in this state and what is going on in Iraq, it's easy to forget where there is so much work, real work to be done across our nation at the local level by local officials who deal every day with local issues like ensuring that kids get immunized, that roads get built and maintained, and ensuring so many vital services on which so many citizens of this state depend every single day. As hard as it is to believe, we don't have a county structure in Connecticut, as I mentioned earlier. We're funny in that way, which is why in the last year I've been traveling across the state to many of Iowa's 99 counties. In fact, I suspect I've seen more of Iowa than most Iowans have in the last number of weeks and months going across this state here and learning from Phil and Pat and Kevin about the important issues that you grapple with every single day. But having served for 26 years now, a quarter of a century in the United States Senate, I do know this, that federal mandates here, without federal dollars, create local disasters in so many ways. I don't believe in federal mandates without federal dollars to back them up. Because while the federal government may make the policy, it's local governments that are required to make those policies happen.